Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan here. About a year ago, I tried playing a game called Spoolside, which is a free game for Humble Bundle monthly subscribers. I had a very good first impression of the game, which features fun, cartoony character designs, silly dialogue, platforming based on shifting the perspective of the world, and logic puzzles based on time travel. I asked people if they wanted to see more of the game, and many commenters were interested. Unfortunately, I got completely stuck, and after sinking about 10 hours into repetitively trying to solve one of the time travel puzzles, I put it away and forgot about it for a year. Recently, I discovered all my old footage of the game, and I think it's worth commenting on from a game design perspective. I feel like this game beat me, but I do think I can still give this game a fair review because I know I'm fully capable of beating a game like this. I'm just too bored to sink another 10 hours into trial and error. Something that struck me about this game is this. When I went to the internet to see if there were any guidelines for solving these puzzles, I couldn't find anything at all. No FAQs, no walkthroughs, no YouTube Let's Plays that got past the first chunk of it. Now, because this is a smaller indie title, it's not surprising that there aren't bunches of walkthroughs for how to beat it online, but nothing at all? Not a finished Let's Play? What I think happened is all of these other YouTube gamers had exactly the same problem I did. They got stuck and gave up in boredom, and probably they did it a lot sooner than I did. I've noticed a trend in a lot of game design commentary channels where they will discuss conveyance in games and the idea of minimizing difficulty and frustration. But I actually tend to enjoy old platformers that require many hours of exploration and many deaths. So what's up with Spoolside? Why'd I get bored? I think its main problem from a game design perspective is pretty simple. There are about 4 different levels or worlds for you to traverse, and each is only about 1 screen wide. That means you can walk across the entire map in about 7 minutes. There are no enemies. Manipulating the world's perspective is fun, but after about 30 minutes, I felt like I understood everything I needed to know about the platforming aspect of the game. Walk left, walk right, jump. Maybe manipulate perspective a bit to advance. Sometimes I would die while experimenting with perspective, or just while being bored and forgetful of what I was doing. But the punishment isn't a game over screen. You're just teleported back to the last time machine you walked past. You'd think this would minimize frustration, but what it means is your punishment for being careless is more time playing the same stages over and over again. Walk left, walk right, jump. Now, the time travel puzzles are actually quite fascinating, but because your time spent between these puzzles is so dull, that means every little challenge you have solving a puzzle is magnified by the frustrating, dull sections in between. For example, when I first started playing the game, I tried speaking to different people and giving different answers to questions, like I usually do in RPGs. I told the crab professor I would help him become immortal, then immediately went back to explore the past. When I saw him again, I jokingly told him to make the immortality gem himself, then progress to the future. What I didn't know is I had accidentally solved a puzzle. If you tell the crab professor you will help him become immortal, he lazily waits around forever for you to solve his problem for him until he dies. But if you tell him to do it himself, he becomes motivated to discover the secret to immortality. I didn't put 2 and 2 together on this immediately, meaning I successfully solved the puzzle the first time, but didn't know what I did to solve it while backtracking backwards and forwards through time. So, how did I eventually figure this out? By going back and forth in time repeatedly, completely bored, trying everything possible, wondering if I broke the game, until realizing this was literally the only response I hadn't tried changing yet. This is one example of a compounding problem. If I had been having fun platforming while going back and forth, I might feel a bit stupid for making a mistake like this, but I'd probably just laugh at myself. I was having fun. When I'm not having fun with the platforming and trying to figure out a puzzle like this, I feel stupid for playing the game. I don't feel stupid for not solving the puzzle. Later, there are jokes that are based on trolling the player. One character asks you to give him money to invest in a resort in the future. He then gives you your cut in the future and wonders how much bigger the resort would be if he'd started out with that much money. The cue to the player is obviously to go back in time and invest your profits to make the resort even bigger. Since this is an RPG, I naturally want to try every possibility to see if it unlocks a path elsewhere in the game. After about 3 rounds of doing this and getting a giant pile of money so large it actually obstructs your other items and can hinder your ability to solve other puzzles, the joke is that if you invest too much money in the resort, they go bankrupt anyway because they overinvested. The joke is supposed to be funny because you wasted your time going back and forth. Again, in a fun platformer, this joke would be really funny. But in a boring platformer, this kind of joke is just obnoxious. It reminds me of how much time I just spent not having fun, and I've got to do it over again. One of the sweet aspects of this game narratively is, as you go into the future, you realize that the characters you wanted to help eventually die off or suffer some other terrible fate. You want to help them, but you can't save everyone. For example, if you didn't help the exterminator poison the rats, he instead tries to kill them with toxic goo that turns them into a horrible immortal rat monster. Ironically, if you feel sorry for the rats, the kindest thing you can do is get the rat poison. Where I've left off, most of the characters are doing pretty well for a while until some disaster strikes in their lives. To prevent the disaster, I clearly have to get some item to help them. To get those items, I have to repetitively traverse the same 4 worlds over and over again, reading the same jokes, which were sweet and charming the first time, over and over again, and try talking to every character in every possible timeline with every possible item to see which item unlocks the next item I need. And I just don't want to bother. I would recommend this game to an extremely patient and organized person. You should probably have a pen and paper and record every action you take, because you never know how that small action could be the key to solving a puzzle in an alternate timeline. There are many aspects of this game I find clever and charming, but I sadly give up. The characters in my game will never be happy. They are doomed to their terrible, inescapable fates, and I don't feel bad for them. That being said, what would I do to fix this game? One possibility might be a good, old-fashioned set of hearts to indicate health. When I'm bored, one of the things I like to do is experiment with platforming. This can be fun because you can discover some alternate paths by manipulating perspective, but risky because you could die while doing so. If dropping off the map just cost me a bit of health, I would be more willing to experiment while I had lots of hearts, and much more cautious when I was down to 1 or 2 hearts. Because the punishment is always the same, go back and do everything over again. And if you used an item, go all the way back to the beginning and get it again. There is no incentive to experiment. You want to be as safe and careful as possible to avoid repeating sections. I would also probably make the items permanent, or at least give the time traveler a way to repeat the repetitive sections quickly so that they can get through puzzles they've already solved. I know the developers were going for a logical time travel idea where if you use an item, it's gone forever unless you go back in time and get it again. But for the sake of keeping the player engaged, I would sacrifice realism to prevent them from having to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. This is a time travel game, after all. It doesn't break immersion to give the characters some magical ability to return to old paths or old rooms, or to, through time, get items back that they had before, without repeating these tedious sections over and over again. Time travel doesn't exist, so you can make time travel work any way you want, so long as it keeps the game fun. That's that. If there was a major update to this game that streamlined some of these frustrating aspects of it, I would actually consider returning to it and trying to beat it to see how the characters' stories end. But its major flaw is it's about 30 minutes of fun, engaging gameplay, stretched to over 10 hours of tedious trial and error, hoping you find the right combination of items and responses in this complicated timeline you've created with no hope that you have what you need from previous timelines to make this work. Oops, silly you! Time to go back and do that all over again! If you beat this game, show me a clip on your channel or a screenshot of the ending screen, and I will give you a code for a free video game. No, on second thought, no. Don't do that. I don't want to torture you. just go to my Subscribestar, where I post Steam key codes that will let you redeem a free game on your Steam account, and do literally anything else with your time apart from playing Spoolside. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and check out my Subscribestar. Catch you later.